Howdy folks, and welcome to World of... We're just making this shit up as we go along now, really, aren't we? With the mighty Jingles. That's right, Chinese tank destroyers are here. China didn't have any tank destroyers. What are you talking about, Jingles? Well, I know that, you know that, but apparently Wargaming doesn't know that. But, well, then again, the fact that something never actually existed never really stopped Wargaming from putting it into World of Tanks before, did it? Yes, that's right, about a third of the Soviet tank destroyer line. We're looking at you. But then again, where exactly do you draw the line? Because if you say that we're only going to have vehicles that were actually issued to armoured regiments and battalions, then you'd probably have to get rid of around about 40% of all the vehicles in World of Tanks. If you were to maybe draw the line at vehicles that actually entered production, you'd probably still have to get rid of around about 40% of all the current vehicles that exist in World of Tanks. So, okay, let's draw the line a little further back. Vehicles that were prototypes. Prototype models were built and tested even if they never entered production or were accepted into service. Oh well, we can do that. That lets us play with the mouse, it lets us play with the tortoise, the Object 704. Some of the most popular machines in World of Tanks were only ever prototypes. Still doesn't let us include the Chinese tank destroyers though, no. If you want to include the Chinese tank destroyers, then you also have to accept vehicles that were basically jotted down on the back of a napkin by an engineer during his coffee break. Because that's what these things are. Then again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? The danger, of course, when you introduce vehicles that only ever existed on paper, is that, well, if they only ever existed on paper, then they were never built, they were never tested. And because they were never tested, nobody really knows whether or not they would ever have actually worked. There are plenty of things that look good on paper, but are utter disasters in reality. The Phantom Menace, for example. There are all kinds of problems that can crop up during the development phase that you just can't anticipate when you're idly scrawling ideas down on the back of a napkin during your coffee break. The Jagdtiger, for example, which did enter production and did exist and did even see combat, but was supposed to be equipped with a 128mm gun. The only problem was they didn't have enough of them. So some of the Jagdtiger regiments actually went into battle with their tank destroyers equipped with the Pak 43 L71 88mm gun, which was a very, very good gun. Probably a better gun to fit onto the Jagdtiger than the planned 128mm gun. And this variant of the Jagdtiger is in fact represented in World of Tanks as the Pak 43 Jagdtiger Premium Tier 8 German tank destroyer. But if nothing else, it illustrates the difference between an idle idea that you might have jotted down on the back of a napkin during your coffee break and what actually happens when you're looking at production. Now with the Chinese tank destroyers, luckily, as far as giving the nod to realism is concerned, we're not talking about any particularly ambitious designs. There are no Waffenträger E100s here. Nobody's trying to get away with introducing hover tanks armed with Tesla cannons here. You know, these are fairly straightforward, unimaginative but practical designs. So, to be completely fair to Wargaming, if the Chinese army had ever seriously gotten around to producing tank destroyers, based on the designs that they'd sketched out, there's a pretty good chance that what they would have ended up with would be more or less what we've got here in World of Tanks. This one is a particularly good example. This, played for us by, I'll have a stab at pronouncing that name, Rial Gensch, or Rial Gensch? We're going to call him Rial, anyway. And he's in the Chinese Tier 6 tank destroyer, the WZ-131GFT, and the name's a little bit confusing because it's based on the Type 62. Well, if it's based on the Type 62, why isn't it the Type 62 GFT? Why is it the WZ-131GFT? What's going on, Jingles? Well, things can get a little bit confusing with the Chinese tanks. The Type 62 and the WZ-131 are the same tank. Anytime you see a Chinese tank with the WZ designation, that's the factory designation. Anytime you see a Chinese tank with a type designation, like the Type 62 or the Type 59, that's the army designation for the tank. But the Type 62 and the WZ-131, same machine. This thing is based on the Type 62, although it actually has the Type 59's gun. That's right, it's a Tier 6 tank destroyer with a Tier 8 medium tank gun. Stock, this machine has a 85mm gun, but it can upgrade to the 100mm, this is a bit of a mouthful, 59 100 TGFT. It's even more of a mouthful than the name of the machine. It's not a bad little gun, as you'd expect. It's a tier 8 medium tank gun on a tier 6 tank destroyer. But it does mean that this machine doesn't have that oh shit factor of other tank destroyers that have 122mm guns. Nevertheless, the damage per minute of this thing is not bad at all. Unfortunately, this machine's view range is not fantastic, which is why Real has fitted binocular telescopes, and its armour is absolutely terrible. It's based on the hull of the Type 62, which means at the very best it only has 35mm of armour, and that's at the front. It is well sloped, but it's still only 35mm thick, and it's not going to stop anything unless he gets lucky and it hits at a ridiculous angle, and he's going to need to start getting lucky because there's only 4 of his team left against 8 enemies. Alright, he's just killed the heavy tank number 6. 4 of his team left against 7 enemies. And there's an OI over there who's getting swarmed and barely has any health left, and crap, he's been spotted. And actually, wait, no, that's not too bad. It's just a T67. This gun does 250 average damage. Actually, let's just stop and talk about this gun for a minute. To all intents and purposes, this is the same gun that you get on the Type 59, the Tier 8 Premium Medium Tank. Except it's better. Yes, really. It's actually better than the same gun on the Type 59. It has the same damage of 250, it has the same penetration of 181, and that's not bad for a Tier 6 tank destroyer. But it's also more accurate than the Type 59, with 0.36 accuracy, and it has a faster rate of fire than the Type 59 with 7.5 rounds per minute. Now, this would not be the first time Wargaming have given a lower tier tank destroyer a gun that would be considered overpowered, but they've balanced it by giving it worse soft stats than the same gun on a machine a tier or 2 higher. The ISU-152, which sadly no longer gets the BL-10 troll cannon, but when it did, it had the same penetration, it had the same damage, but the accuracy, aiming time, the reload wasn't as good as the same gun on the Object 704 a tier higher. Oh, hang on a second. Enemy artillery. I'll check this out for RNG. 1 shot kill, 250. No, low damage roll. Okay, reload. It's going to take 2 shots, and the second shot, ammo racks him for 11 damage. I would demand a refund. But yes, we're used to seeing machines that share guns across different tiers having worse stats on the lower tier machines to make up for the fact that they've got this overpowered higher tier gun. Ah yes, Jingles, but we have guns that are shared across different classes of vehicle, like medium tanks and tank destroyers, for example. Oh, hold on to that thought, he's just spotted the KV-2, and I don't think the KV-2 has seen him, or if he has, he's reacting very slowly. He has seen him, but he reacted far too slowly. There goes the KV-2. Oh, and he's... well, yeah, let's not worry about that. Artillery is going to be ranging on him. But yes, when you, for example, get the same gun on a medium tank and a tank destroyer, what tends to happen to make up for a fact that the tank destroyer doesn't have a turret is that the tank destroyer gets that gun with better soft stats, better aiming time, better reload, all that sort of thing. The T-54 and the SU-101 are perfect examples. The T-54 has the 100mm D-54 gun, and you get the same gun on the SU-101 a tier lower at tier 8, and the SU-101 has that gun with a better reload than the T-54, but the T-54 still has better accuracy and better aiming time. Not so much on this thing, which has the same gun as a medium tank, not 1, but 2 tiers higher, and it still has a better reload, better accuracy, and a better aiming time on that gun. All of which is a kind of very long-winded and jingle-esque way of saying the gun on this thing is shit hot. It is a very, very good gun. It might not have that oh shit factor of a 122mm gun with 390 alpha damage, but it's still a very, very good gun. And the tier 7 Chinese tank destroyer can fit a 122mm gun. But I'm not sure I would take it, because it also gets 2 versions of this gun that are both better than you get here at tier 6. One thing that the Chinese tank destroyers are not short of are good guns. The thing is, though, this machine really does kind of need a very good gun, because if it didn't have a very good gun, it would be utter dog shit. It only has 550 health. It's the lowest of any of the tier 6 tank destroyers. And it only has 35mm of armour at the front, which means in situations like this, you are never going to win a shooting match with a KV-1S, because that 85mm gun only has to hit you 4 times, even if you start the fight on full health, and you're dead. Your armour is not going to help you. because it's only 35mm thick, and he can fire that gun faster than you can fire your gun. This machine is not a brawler. Do not be fooled by the pretty good speed and manoeuvrability. It doesn't have the health, and it definitely doesn't have the armour to get bogged down in shooting matches with other machines, even long-range shooting matches. This tank really only works when it's shooting from ambush, or when the enemy are occupied by having something else to shoot at. Right now, Real's the last tank left on his team, so he has the undivided attention of that AMX-13 and the KV-1S. One of his teammates isn't helping much either. That guy in the Churchill who's just spamming the map with pings, and has been doing so for the last 10 minutes ever since he died 3 minutes into the game without killing anything. That's all he's done this entire game, just spamming the map with map pings. Now, Wargaming say if you never want to hear from another player again, add them to your blacklist. Well, that doesn't work though, does it, Wargaming? Because it doesn't disable their map pings, and it doesn't disable their chat commands. I don't know about you lot, but if I add somebody to my blacklist, I never want to hear from them again. And they usually get onto my blacklist because they've been spamming the map with pings, or they've been abusing the chat command function. And yet, those are the only two things that blacklisting somebody doesn't actually mute. Seriously, Wargaming, sort your shit out. Anyway, he knows where the artillery is because somebody's capping. And the AMX-13 has less than 250 health, so he should be able to one-shot him. Then again, he should have been able to one-shot the Griller earlier, and that took 2 shots, the second of which was an ammo rack. There he is, aims up, misses. Luckily, the AMX-13 misses as well, so he's got time to make sure of it with a second shot, because he's always going to beat that guy's reload. And now, of course, the KV-1S knows exactly where he is as well. Now, Real has a choice to make here, and it's all going to come down to what he's anticipating that KV-1S doing. Is the KV-1S coming back to the cap circle here to try to catch him after he killed the artillery? If that's what he's anticipating him doing, then you'd expect him to be stopping here, turning around, lying up in a bush and waiting to ambush him. Although it is going to take 2 shots to kill that KV-1S, because even though he did get hit by the M41 artillery, before killing the artillery he still has around about 340 health remaining. On the other hand, what Real could also do, again, assuming that the KV-1S is coming back to the cap circle, is make a run for the enemy cap circle. Because while the KV-1S is pretty quick, it's probably not quick enough to get there in time to stop him from capping if he's already heading the wrong way to Real's cap circle. And then, plot twist, KV-1S is smarter than that and had expertly anticipated exactly what Real was going to be trying to do, and was already cutting across the centre of the town in order to cut him off on the way back to his own cap circle. And just about the only good thing that we can say about this situation is that at least the KV-1S doesn't have the 122mm howitzer, because if he did, Real's a one-shot kill. On the other hand, the KV-1S does have something that Real doesn't, a turret. He can point the gun at him coming around the corner of the building, which is something that Real cannot do. Real's gonna need a miracle here. Do you remember earlier when I said it was going to take a miracle for anybody to bounce a shot off the front of this machine? Real just got his miracle. Yep, 85mm gun just bounced off 35mm of armour. Real just got his miracle, and his Pools medal to go with his Ace Tanker, High Caliber, Top Gun and Pascucci's medal for killing 2 of the artillery in the WZ-131 GFT. And we are really going to have to come up with a decent nickname for these Chinese tank destroyers, because I'm going to start getting very, very sick and tired of repeating names like that sooner rather than later. So that one over to you in the comments. Let's have some nicknames for these Chinese tank destroyers. Anyway, Real, thank you for sending that one in. I have to admit, I was quite curious about these machines. I was looking at the stats on paper and thinking, I'm not really seeing anything to get excited about, but well, this one certainly isn't a bad machine. Well, it is a bad machine, but it's got a very, very good gun. And a good gun will do, as Real just demonstrated. In today's world of we're just making this shit up as we go along now, really, aren't we? Video with the mighty Jingles. Hope you enjoyed it, folks, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.